Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat. Om Bhurbhuvassuvaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat. Om Bhurbhuvassuvaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat. Om Bhurbhuvassuvaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat. Om Bhurbhuvassuvaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat. Om Bhurbhuvassuvaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat. Om Bhurbhuvassuvaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat. Om Bhurbhuvassuvaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat. Om Bhurbhuvassuvaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavarai Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. One of the biggest questions that people have when they listen to Vedanta is, it's okay, I understand the fact that what all that is here is Atma, we saw, which is Druk, and the whole world we saw is Mithya, it depends upon Atma, okay, for its existence. If this is really the reality about myself, then how do I use this knowledge for my day-to-day living? Okay? Because if you really try to use this information in your day-to-day living, you fall into two extremes. One is, what? I'm already free, the whole world depends upon me, so now whatever I do at the level of action is totally irrelevant to Atma. Right? That is one position. Or the other position is what?
Is that I did nothing.
I don't
Exactly. I don't do anything because everything that needs to be accomplished is accomplished. So now I don't have to do anything. So either you can do very irresponsible actions and justify everything by saying Atma is already free, or you can just take to non-action. Okay. Now this is something. If the whole teaching is not understood, this struggle will continue to happen. Okay. So this is where now Krishna is aware, and also how to connect your day-to-day living with this information or this very profound knowledge is a very important part of learning what Vedanta is saying. Because unless you bridge this gap, there is a big possibility that you will misuse this information and you will actually create your own set of assumptions which are not in keeping with what the Vedas are talking about. Okay? So therefore, Lord Krishna now enters into another topic because Arjuna had two questions. The first question was, what is the solution to this fundamental problem of sorrow and inadequacy and sadness that I am feeling? In answer to that, Lord Krishna says, this cannot go until you know the true nature of yourself. Otherwise, it is just impossible. It is like you are caught in this particular thing and you don't know how to get out. What do you need to do? You need to lift yourself up and see the whole thing from a different perspective, in light of which this particular thing already what? It's put in its own place. It doesn't, when you're here, that seems like the only thing. When you're here, what happens?
You see the whole picture.
You see the whole picture. Within that particular thing actually fits in. You're not trying to negate it, but your perspective is so much wider based on reality, in light of which that particular thing is seen as it is, and your capacity to deal with it automatically increases. Right? So that is one thing. So Lord Krishna makes him see the real picture about what is the nature of I from a totally different perspective. Okay? Now, the second thing Arjuna wanted to know was, now what should I do in this situation? Okay? So there he says, now Arjuna can fall into the same extreme. He can say, now let me kill all of them, I don't care, because Atma is always free. Or he can say, now why should I kill? Why should I do anything now? Because Atma is free and the whole world is Mithya. He can fall into these two extremes. So now, in answer to his second question, Lord Krishna introduces the answer by saying, we saw last time, chapter 2, verse 39, he clearly marks, we finished 25, so the next is 39. Okay? So now he clearly creates a demarcation by, I have taught you what is the nature of Atma. Now I am going to talk about Karma Yoga. We will chant the verse. Okay? So, Esha te vihida sankhe buddhir yoge vimamshuno buddha yaya pata karma bandham rahasyasi. You chant after me. Esha te vihida sankhe buddhir yoge vimamshuno buddhya yukto yaya partha karma bandham rahasyasi. So up to now, I have answered your fundamental question about what leads to sense of fulfillment, which is knowing the nature of Atma. Now, Buddhi Yoge tu Imamshu. Now I am going to change the topic and it is going to be Yoga. Yoga here means Karma Yoga. Okay? The very famous Karma Yoga. When people talk about Bhagavad Gita, one thing that comes to their mind is what? Karma Yoga. Okay? So here he says, now living a life of Karma Yoga, what will happen? Karma Parambam Rahasyasi. Okay? You will free yourself from the bondage of karma. Okay? Now this is something which is a very significant statement. Okay? Karma that we perform in general, what do we perform karma for? Different actions. We are so busy. Our whole calendars are all filled with to do, right? So why do we perform all these different karmas that we perform?
The process of living.
Excellent. It's a process of living, but living is not just for the sake of living. We have some goals, right? So those goals we can accomplish through what? Performing karma. What are the different goals that we set for ourselves?
Career,
Excellent.
education, raise children,
Every-
be good in your own life.
Whole big
Human
list.
body, mind, soul.
Yeah, I mean everything, right? Everything that, because up to now you've been living life and you have thousands of goals. And from the time of birth till now, how many goals you've changed? It's not something that you have only one goal. What happens? What was very important to you 5 years ago, sometimes it's no longer very important to you. And what is important to you now may not be so, 10 years from now. So that means your goals themselves keep changing. And for accomplishing those goals, you perform actions. Okay? Now, that is something which is very constructive. Why Lord Krishna is saying that this karma leads to bandhana. Bandhana means bondage. Why? Because when you perform an action, what happens?
Your expectation.
You obviously have expectations, and nobody can actually perform an action without expectation, because your actions correspond to the goals that you have, right? And the goals keep changing. So those goals are like your expectations. This is what I want to achieve, and I'm going to do this action to achieve this goal. This is the rational behavior. Okay? Nobody performs actions without expecting result, because people have different goals and therefore they choose different actions to achieve those goals. Right? So now, I think that's a very, very rational thing to do. What is the problem here? Why does it lead to bondage, what we say?
It's a never-ending journey.
Yes, right? It is a never-ending chakra, like Tushar says. What happens are different scenarios. Okay? You have a certain goal, you strive for it. Okay? Now, there are two possibilities. You get it or you don't get it. When you don't get it, what happens? When you don't get
There's rejection.
there is dejection, there
You
is
question your own pursuit of that action.
excellent, right? There is a kind of, when things don't happen your way, there are a series of reactions. Everybody reacts differently, but it follows a very big range. Okay? Either you can have dejection and you have a sense of failure where you blame yourself and you feel you are no good. You have this whole big inferiority complex. And sometimes, because you feel small, what happens? Other people start feel, you think in your eyes they are big because they have achieved what you cannot achieve according to you. Then what? Jealousy arises. Then you want to what? When jealousy arises, what happens?
Then it has its own real complex.
Negative actions.
Right. What Nirmala is saying is, sometimes when jealousy arises, instead of saying I'm jealous because I feel this person has achieved something that I want to achieve, the general thing is you want to put that person down, because you're not interested actually in putting the person down. You are interested in your well-being. But in front of that person, you feel very small. So now, what is a defense mechanism? You need to bring that person down for you to feel good about yourself. This is really what it is, right? It's not like people are very deliberately mean or vicious or anything. It's just that they are what? They cannot stand feeling small. Okay? And they find all these mechanisms to what? Compensate so that I feel good about myself. Their whole big interest is feeling good about oneself. Okay? But what happens, the actions become convoluted. The whole thinking process becomes distorted. Right? So that means these are one set of reactions when things don't go your way. What is the other set of reactions? One is you take all the responsibilities and yeah. The other set of reactions is what? One set of reaction is I take blame and then I feel low, then I feel jealous towards people that I think have achieved. I try to bring them down. These are all the different series of reactions that happen. On the other hand, what can happen is the whole focus is what? This person is to be blamed for my not getting what I want. Okay? So that means there is this whole blame game, okay, where I blame either one person or what? Situation or what? My destiny, right? Or I label the world as something which is unfair, and I begin to think that goodness doesn't pay in this world.
Basically feel persecuted.
That feeling of persecution and a victim. Why me? Okay? So that means this is a series. Now, why karma is a bondage? You need to know that. Okay? Karma as such is a very healthy thing. You expect something and you go for it through your actions. That is the only way actually. Okay? But it becomes a bondage because when things don't happen my way, these are the series of reactions. Right? Now with this series of reactions, imagine they become my value system and then I engage in the world. What is going to be the nature of my engagement with the world?
There's another thought that comes when
Yes.
you say this, in all of what you've said,
Yes.
that it's very contrary to the whole pursuit of self, because it's taking you completely away from self.
Excellent. Right? Excellent. So what Vinny is saying is so true. Imagine if your mind is afflicted with what? I'm a victim, world is bad, okay? Or I'm no good. If this is your mindset, how will it hold the vision you are the whole? It's impossible, right? Because you have all these very deep-rooted assumptions about yourself, right? And then you superimpose on that mind one idea, you're the whole. What a gap. Okay? So therefore, what is needed? Excellent Vinny, right? What is needed now?
Non-doership of action.
No.
Not to be aware of the action and not to be aware of what it can lead you to.
Exactly.
Awareness
So
and
conscious
get back to
action
conscious.
with
Excellent.
an awareness.
Excellent. That means up to now, what has happened is when things don't happen my way, there are these series of reactions. Okay? Now, and that has led to certain worldviews about myself and about everything else around me. Okay? Now, if I were to understand this bigger reality about myself, what do I need to do? All these assumptions I have to undo somehow. In order for this knowledge to stay with me, how will I undo these assumptions? This is what he says. Karma Yoga is a means through which I will what? Continue to engage in the world, but take care of all these assumptions and reactions and this kind of a value that I have imputed on the world and the nature of I in this world. Okay? You need to undo all of that because that is based on some wrong understanding of what is. Okay? So that means in order for you to become ready for this knowledge, what do you need to do? You need to undo all of this. You continue to perform action with a lot more awareness. Okay? Now, what does that awareness mean? How do I now use my karma in a way that it is not a bondage, but what? It will free me from bondage, from all these wrong assumptions. So that is what we call Karma Yoga. Before, actions are done to achieve things, and when I don't achieve those things, what? I have a series of reactions which becomes a bondage. So karma becomes a bondage because I cannot handle. I cannot handle what I call failure. And if everybody looks at one's life and sees how many goals that you have set for yourself from the time of your birth, how many you have achieved and how many you have not achieved. What is the proportion of what you've achieved and what you've not achieved?
Skewed.
Skewed. Absolutely. You take the most successful person, and how, if you ask him personally all your set goals, what percent have you achieved and what percent have you not achieved? What do you think would be the percentage? 20% is what you achieve or not achieve.
What you achieve.
What you achieve, right? So that means this 80% load we are carrying because we have made some message to ourselves about this 80% of the things which haven't gone our way. So we are carrying this whole load within ourselves of unresolved issues for 80% of things not working our way.
And even the ones that have worked out, they paid prices for. So you carry the weight of that.
So my God. Now Vinny is even increasing the load.
But it's true.
Yeah, it's true. Absolutely. Right? Even something that we actually really strive for. Many times people tell me that I really wanted this job. So my husband is a professor, and students come to him and say, this was my dream job and I got it and it's a disaster. I don't like it at all. So that means all this time you are driven for a given goal. When you actually achieve it, even then sometimes it's not at all what you think it would be, and it loses what? It's all its absolutely. Right? So that means there is this huge burden that we are carrying within us. Okay? Now that needs to be addressed, because unless that is addressed, this knowledge will just remain some kind of a what? Up in the air, not connected to your life. Lord Krishna recognizes it very well. Okay? So now he says, if you want to undo all this load, because which is essential for you to what? Finally comprehend this reality and to live the vision of oneness, you need to undo this load. Okay? So Karma Yoga will enable you to take care of this load. Okay? So that is what is the purpose of Karma Yoga. Okay? Now, what is Karma Yoga is explained by Lord Krishna in the next 4 verses, which are very critical verses, because we all have heard of Karma Yoga, but we all have different ideas about what Karma Yoga is. Okay? Now, before we look at these verses, let us see, in case you have some idea of what Karma Yoga is, because everybody has heard the word Karma Yoga. So what do you think Karma Yoga is? The actions and inaction. The actions have produced karma bandhana, as I just explained, right? So that cannot be Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga is the means to free you from those burdens that you are carrying because of those actions. Right? Actions as themselves are not good or bad. It is the result that comes, and your incapacity to deal with it in a proper perspective, that leads to burden. Actions don't lead to burden.
So it's action, reaction.
Your reactions to the result of the action. Right? So now, what do you think is Karma Yoga? You've all heard of Karma Yoga. But just say whatever you think is Karma Yoga. Don't be afraid. Just say.
Every action will have a
Okay, so one aspect is duties. Okay, that's very good. It's true. He does talk about duties. Yeah.
like yoga, like joining into the karma. You perform karma. Engage yourself in that action.
Excellent. What Nita is saying is, one is how do you engage in the action, right? The karma, what is redefining the purpose of karma, then choosing how you engage in the action and how do you respond to the result. You can change all three.
Can you repeat this?
The verses will say. The verses will say. Okay? The very purpose of karma, what is the purpose of karma? Okay? Now that is mentioned in the first verse, you will see. Vyavasayatmika buddhi ekeha kuru nandana pahushakahyanantascha buddhayo vyavasayina. Chant after me. Vyavasayatmika buddhi
Vyavasayatmika buddhi
ekeha kuru nandana bahushakahyanantascha buddhayo vyavasayina. So here, now Krishna is talking about Vyavasayatmika buddhi. Okay? What is Vyavasayatmika buddhi? It is Nishchayatmika buddhi. Why am I performing karma? That is the first question. Okay? As we saw, as Rita was saying, generally we perform karma for what? Education, jobs. This is all put in Veda, in the Vedic terms, for two purposes. They have two very significant words for the sake of Artha and Kama. Right? Artha includes everything that you think will give you security. Okay? It could be what? Your money, it could be your relationships, it could be your education, all these different things that you want to achieve and you perform actions for that. Okay? The other pursuit, what Vedas talk about is Kama, which is all different forms of pleasure. Okay? You can be, your source of pleasure can be very different for somebody sports, somebody art, somebody movies, somebody rock music. You know, so many different vacations, all these are different sources of pleasure and you perform action. So up to now, the whole purpose of karma was what? Artha and Kama. Now, the person Arjuna, what has he realized? That this Artha and Kama, no matter how much more, and what is the width or depth, it is not going to solve the problem. Okay? So therefore, now karma, to engage in the world for Artha and Kama, it's not that they are eliminated, but the life is not defined as just getting Artha and Kama. It remains a pursuit, but it is not the goal of life. Okay? What becomes the goal of life? Self-knowledge, which actually is a solution to my feeling of inadequacy. So now, the very purpose is what? What is the end in life? No longer Artha and Kama, moksha. Now, if moksha has become the end in life, the actions initially I performed for what? Artha and Kama. Now, the actions are performed to prepare me for moksha. That is what we call Nishchayatmika buddhi. Nishchayatmika buddhi is that if moksha is my pursuit, this engaging with Kama and Artha has left what? All these burdens, because I haven't got many things. Now, I am performing karma to release myself from all these burdens that I am carrying so that I become ready for moksha.
The change of your focus is changing from...
Absolutely. The change of focus of what is the purpose of karma. Before, purpose of karma was gaining Artha and Kama. Now, purpose of karma is self-growth and letting go of all the burdens. So that is what we call Nishchayatmika. what is the place of karma in my life and why am I doing karma? If this is not very clearly understood, what? People say karma yoga is doing actions without expecting a result. This is actually not true. Okay? Because everybody has some goal. Why do you perform karma? The person who is doing karma yoga, what is the goal? Goal is moksha. And what is the intermediate goal? Self-growth. So that is the goal. Nobody can say it is just, nobody blindly does karma without any end in view. That is not possible and it is not wise. Okay? It is shifting the goal. Before it was artha kama, now it is moksha and self-growth for moksha. That is the first thing. Some people say karma yoga is skill in action. Is karma yoga skill in action? Not really, because a serial criminal can be highly skillful. The very fact that he gets away, with all these murders means he is very clever, he is very intelligent. Okay? So it cannot be skill of action. It cannot also be what? Just being good and persistent at anything. Because you can have very, very mediocre goals and you can be very persistent at it. Being a good cricketer and all is not a karma yoga. They are just skilled. They are amazingly brilliant people who are focusing on that skill. Okay? That is a profession. Either it is giving them artha or it is giving them kama. Okay? All these different people who are excelling in many, many different fields, they are outstanding people. But please don't think that they are doing karma yoga. Because karma yoga is a technical term which is used by Lord Krishna, which means that when you have shifted from artha kama as your end in life to what? Moksha. Okay? And now the purpose of karma has become the growth. That's when you define it as karma yoga. It's a technical term. Okay? People who are good at doing things wonderful, we are not looking down upon them. Okay? But they are just good at what they are doing. You can't call them karma yogis. Right? So this is where Lord Krishna is saying, Vyavasayatmika buddhihi ekeha purnantara. Okay? For any action to be a karma yoga is, you need to redefine why karma in my life. Karma, when you say it is for my self-growth, so that I can discover the reality about myself, then it makes it into karma yoga. He says, Bahu shakha hyanantascha buddhayaha avyavasaya. If this particular positioning of karma is not clear, then what? Bahu shakha. You don't even know why you are doing karma that you are doing, and somebody tells you, okay, now stop thinking, and you think, oh, that is not good. Okay? Or somebody tells you, okay, now control your mind, don't have any sadness, and don't have any fear, and don't have anything. That is karma yoga. So that means you just kind of impute karma yoga to all these different things according to your imagination, and it is limitless. There is no end to our imagination. Okay? And every imagination that we have, which is not in keeping with what is, what does it do?
It confuses us.
Exactly. That means it confuses us further. We are further and further away from reality. Okay? The whole sanity is what? Our thinking is aligned with realities. Okay? The more you are clear, you go to any subject matter. Okay? What does the teacher say? The more you are in alignment with what is, to that extent, what you have understood, and you can live meaningfully. Otherwise, we move from one imagination to the other. The mind is a very creative mind, and we have thousands of ideas. And what happens is, we move from one idea to the other. We don't check the reality of those ideas. Okay? whole knowledge pursuit is what? Realigning your thinking with what is. This is what we call Vyavasaya. If things are not done with clarity, okay, you can just be going round and round and round, and you can be imagining that you are actually progressing, but you are, sometimes in the name of spirituality, people create more subjectivity than a normal human being. Okay? In the name of spirituality, if you think that, okay, now I'm going to get into one mode where I'm going to just feel this expanse and I'm going to be disconnected with the world and I'm going to transcend the world. These are all these imaginations that we create, which actually make us more irrational than a normal human being. And we think that we are spiritually progressing. Okay. Please understand, spirituality is about the most practical and most realistic person is a spiritual person, because he is not projecting, he is seeing things as they are. That is what a spiritual person is. Growth is aligning my thinking with what is, not creating my own imaginations. Okay? So this is where Vyavasayatmika Buddhi is very important, because otherwise Lord Krishna says, you create your own idea of what is Karma Yoga and you get totally carried away with it and there is no end. You are still in the same, confused illusions. Right? Now, if it's understood that Karma Yoga is meant for my self-growth, then the next question is, okay, how do you make this karma help you for self-growth and get over all these burdens that you are carrying? That is the next question. Okay? So, this is one of the most beautiful verses of the Gita, and that is Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phalaheturvu ma te sangodhva karmani. Chant after me. Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phalaheturvu ma te sangodhva karmani. You're chanting, right? Okay. This is something, I think anybody who has studied Bhagavad Gita may have somehow heard about this verse. Karmani eva adhikarate ma phaleshu kadachana. Okay? Now, this particular verse is not an advice. Please understand that. Okay? Lord Krishna is not telling Arjuna to say that you only focus on your action and leave the result to me. He is not saying that. Okay? What he is saying is a statement of fact. What is a statement of fact? The statement of fact is that when karmani eva adhikara, what does it mean? You have a choice over actions. What does it mean?
So use your intellect to perform.
Excellent, right? Very good. As Namrata is saying, the senses report all these different things to you. The mind is a central processing unit where for everything that the senses have reported, get reported at one place. Then, as she's saying, that there is an intellect which then decides what should I do. Right? So this is that whole process, intellect deciding and choosing, because there are various options. Okay? And choosing that one given option within various options is what you have a choice over. Okay? So this is what we say, human being is endowed with a free will. Okay? Because the central processing unit, which is the mind, has gathered everything that the senses have reported, but you still have a choice as to what you do and what you don't do. You have a choice. Okay? That faculty is what we call free will. Okay? That faculty is something what Lord Krishna is pointing out is your choice. You can use it, and you can use it what either not very efficiently, or you can use it with a lot of wisdom. Okay? So this is something that you must realize. There is no such thing. Many times people come up, we as Vedanta teachers, people come up with all kinds of issues people have, and they present situations as though that they can't do anything. This is not true. There is no situation where you can't do anything. You may choose not to do anything, but that's your choice. Don't say that I can't do anything. Okay? That choice belongs to the buddhi. You can do it, you need not do it, and you can do it differently. Okay? So that choice is what we call karmani eva adhikara. Okay? Kartum shakyam, akartum shakyam, anyatha va kartum shakyam. This is the power that you have. Own up to that power. Don't disregard this power that you have, and don't get into this self-pity situation. This self-pity, destination, these are all very destructive. This is the most proactive. You can't find anything more proactive than this. To understand that I have a free will. And I can use this free will, with a lot of wisdom. I'm wasting. If I'm not cultivating my buddhi to use it effectively, what am I doing? I'm wasting my faculty of free will, the biggest endowment that is given to me. Or I'm underutilizing it. Or I'm not utilizing it with a proper perspective.
A question
Yeah.
here.
Now,
I can't use my ability of free will because actually in my estimation of who I am not a capable person of using my free will.
excellent. So that's why you expose yourself to a teaching of Gita or whatever, which gives you a better perspective. Nobody is born with the most cultivated buddhi. But you are given the potential to cultivate your buddhi in a way that you can get rid of all these different complexes that you have and help yourself. That is also given as a potential. You have to use your free will to help yourself do it.
So actually the Lord gave you this ability,
Yes.
but society took it away.
Society and
And
messages
your
that you
own-
share, your
yeah.
own messages to yourself.
Yeah, but I
Right?
think because there is no affirmation backwards. If you do use your free will, you normally put in your place.
So this is what he says. This is exactly what Lord Krishna is saying. If you don't understand karma, then what happens? It leads to karma bandhana. Karma bandhana in terms of what you feel you are no good or you are not using it, or you feel people are responsible or whatever. But you are also given the potential to cultivate that buddhi and use it properly. Okay? That option always
Exists.
is there.
Can you just repeat that point again? Dal might know.
Okay. The point is that when Lord Krishna says karmani eva adhikara te, what he is talking about is this free will that we all enjoy. Okay? Let's say an external situation has happened, and sometimes I have seen it with my own eyes, that two people have gone through, let's say, major personal tragedy, major. Okay? Now, one person is deep in depression, and the other one is what? Using that opportunity to what? Heal oneself. Okay? That is a free will. Nobody can say it is just the external situation. Okay? External situation has happened. which has brought about what is sadness. That is fine. Because an external situation will, this is what we call, this is the reaction that will happen, this is the emotion that will happen at the level of mind. Okay? But as Namrata says, we still have a buddhi. Either you decide to what? Get drowned by this emotion, okay? Create further stories, further helplessness, right? And feel, oh, why me and victim and all that. That is a choice I have. Or I have another choice and said, now this has happened, what can I do now to heal myself? I have seen people who have done big things in life, okay, to compensate for that given loss. Just yesterday I met somebody who has, she lost her husband at a young age, and now she runs a huge foundation doing very, very impressive things. And she has found meaning and purpose in her life. She could have sat and said, oh, I lost my husband, poor me, and gone, and it's like, why me? She could have done that. Okay? Today her eyes are sparkling. Okay? Of course she still remembers her husband. Obviously she cannot erase the memory. Okay? But she has used it what? Constructively. Events in life happen. You have no control over them. Okay? How you respond to them makes all the difference. And that choice of responding is your buddhi that Namrata is talking about. You have a choice. Don't say you don't have a choice. Don't say that now this situation has happened, so I only can be sad. That's not true. You can have sadness, you can have emotions, you can process those emotions, but you can choose not to be drowned or incapacitated by those emotions.
It's like free will doesn't mean that you can do what you want.
No.
Free will is the choice you make in a situation.
Excellent.
Because that's what.
Yes. Perfect.
Because when people, as she was saying, that you're put down when you do something. So free will doesn't mean that if someone tells you something, you just disregard it. I can do what I want.
No.
It's what choice you make.
Absolutely.
That
Perfect. Absolutely. Right?
Choice
Free
is
will,
responsibility.
free will doesn't mean you can do what you want. Absolutely. Free will means you have the capacity to choose. When you have capacity to choose, you have to realize that I have capacity to choose. This is the first thing. And then what? Make the choices responsible. As Namrata is saying. Nirmala is saying. I'm talking. It's okay. Right? So therefore, this is what we call free will. Using that capacity wisely is your wisdom, is your self-growth. This is, you can't find anything more proactive than this. Okay? People unfortunately use this whole Hindu philosophy as all fatalistic. Everything is decided, it's my karma, it is not in my hand. There is not one word written like that. People just give their own meanings. This is what I say. You can imagine and you can impute your meanings, and you do so much injustice to this beautiful text. So that choice, in any situation, the most difficult situation, you still have a choice of how to respond to that. Okay. So recognize that. This impasse that we feel, that I'm stuck, that is never, it's not a reality.
I think the third one is very interesting. Like you have a choice of doing it, not
Yes.
doing it, and doing it differently. That is that's the kicker.
This is the absolute kicker, because we view situations as what? Black and white. The whole vision of our world is what? Either I do something totally idealist or I don't do anything. This is how our mind is trained. Okay? Doing it differently means all the different possibilities between these two extremes are given to us. And you can use your creativity in a very ingenious way to find ways where you feel you're stuck. creativity. It is something which is a gift of Ishvara. The more creative you are in finding solutions, what the universe will respond. Don't think that you are in this dumb universe. You will see the nature of Ishvara. The universe is a highly intelligent force. Yeah? Highly intelligent force. Okay? So therefore, this, as Tushar says, doing it differently is something which is extremely, extremely important. This is where you unleash all your creativity and let every situation actually, when you have a puzzle, what happens?
You keep sideways.
You try to you're not, you're saying, no, this is too difficult and all that, it can challenge you. And they say, now let me put it together. Okay? The extent to which you put the pieces in its own place and see it's clear, it's solved, right? Life is like that. Every situation, and if you feel that you don't know what to do, it's a puzzle. Now say that, now this is a puzzle, let me try to solve it. What can I do? The whole focus is what can I do rather than, being burdened by it. Change your attitude. Whole life will change. We are not trying, because nobody can avoid difficulty. Nobody can. Even Lord Krishna, if you look at his life, full of difficulties, right? He was born in a jail. He was not growing up with his parents. This is like a case for a total abandoned child in the psychological terms. It's a disaster, right? Everything can happen in your life and you still can have certain conclusion. That is the key, is using your free will creatively. Okay? And this is what Lord Krishna is saying. Now, having used your free will, now the second problem that we have is we all try to control the result. Okay? And we have an illusion of what? Controlling the result. Control is a big issue in everybody's life. Okay? So this is what he immediately says, you have a choice over action, ma aleshu kadachana. But do you control the result? Do you have a say over what is going to be the outcome? No. You don't. Right? Because if you had full control over the outcome, then what will happen? Everything will happen according to your wishes. There will be no such thing called failure in life. Now, the very fact that Rajiv is saying 80% of the things don't happen the way you desire, what does it mean?
We are more failures.
That we don't control results. Right? We don't control results. This is a fact. Okay? If you don't control the results and if you feel that you control the result, then what happens? That means there is
conflict all the time.
There is a conflict all the time because your thinking is not aligned to reality. This is what we talk about, aligning your thinking to realities. It's not an advice. If you don't control, you have to see the fact that you don't control. Okay? Once you know what you can change, what you can change? Your responses and your attitudes and your reactions to situations. This is what you can, you have a choice over. But what happens, what situations come, you have no control over. Once that clarity happens, what will you do?
Make right choices.
You make
You keep aligning your reality.
Keep realigning, you keep changing your reality.
Excellent. You keep what? Realigning. You can see what I can do where is it that I have no control? That means you navigate your life very dynamically, constantly seeing what I can change and what I cannot change. What I can change, I'm highly proactive. What I cannot change, what? You don't brood over, you don't sulk over things that you cannot change. This is the sanest way of living life. There is no other sane way of living life. That same karma which was giving you all these series of problems, if you understand these two facts, what will happen? You change from reacting, self-pitying, victim mode to highly proactive person saying what? I have been given this buddhi, I have been given this faculty, let me do what I can.
If you were to put it in a definition,
Yes,
what would you say?
I would say to recognize the fact that I have a choice over action and not over the result. Karmani eva adhikarahate ma phaleshu kadachana. This is recognizing a fact about what I can change and what I cannot change.
Accept.
And if you were to break it down, then you would basically say that what we have a choice over is the quality of our action aligned to the reality in which we live.
That verse is coming later. Yes, right. So he's further explaining it, right? First, just giving you clarity about where you have a choice and where you don't have a choice. Then the next question is, how do I use that faculty of that choice that I have effectively? That's the second analysis. So it's analysis within analysis within analysis. This is a brilliant book. This is an amazing book. Okay? It is just moving deeper, it is creating, making you, this is all clarity. Clarity of thinking, clarity of what is. Okay? So therefore, he says that if you first recognize where you have choice and where you don't have a choice, then he says that the minute anybody is told that you don't have choice over result of action, what happens? The person says, well, if I can't choose action,
I don't want to do anything.
let me not do anything. He immediately says, Ma karma phala hetu ruhu mate sangot swakarmani. Don't take to non-action. Because you don't have choice over result of the action, don't take to non-action. Okay? Why do you not take to non-action? Because the result is coming from where? Where is it? If you don't have a control over result, then where is the result coming from?
Situations.
There are many variables.
There are
There is a
variables
huge
around.
set of variables around. The whole universe is connected. Okay? So many variables go into giving you the result of the action. Okay? So don't try to think that you can control. In fact, so many variables are not even known to you. So therefore, don't take yourself to be the author of the result of the action. Because if you do, all these different karma bandhas will happen. Right? When I don't have a control, and if I think I have a control, there is a mismatch between reality and my thinking. Whenever there is a mismatch, it leads to karma bandhana.
You can actually even feel the quality of that burden.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it weighs you down.
Yes. So that means if you take yourself to be the author of result of action, all the things that which I had mentioned earlier, they are inevitable. But you also then cannot say, if result is not in my hand, I will not do anything. He says, Mate Sarvotsota. Do what you have to do because that choice you still have. Okay? So situations occur, you have really no control. Okay. But how you respond is in your hand. And how you respond can influence the future in a most profound way. Okay. So, yes.
What was the line you said about not being the author of the action?
Yeah. Here the Sanskrit is Ma Karma Phala Hetu Bhuhu. Don't take yourself to be the author of result of the action. Because
Of
you
the
are not.
result of the
Or the
action?
result of the action. Karma Phala Hetu.
Or also of the action itself?
Action you are doing. You have a choice.
Action, you are the author of
You
that,
are the author.
but not the.
Result of
The result.
Not the result of the action. This is why he says Mate Sanmotso Karmani. Don't take to non-action. Here, see, one
But then when
thing
you do an
Bhagavad,
action with ego,
we are not see here is because this ego, as we saw, please bring back what I have said, right? What we have seen about the reality of Atma is what? I am Brahman. Right? I am the whole. That is the reality. Now we are talking about freeing myself from all the burdens that I am carrying of all the things. So how do I use this action and result dynamic to free myself? The topic is different. Okay? So one
you're
is
saying about
you
the
are
action where you have the freedom of choice,
Yes.
but not over the result.
exactly.
But when I have that freedom of choice,
Yes.
and I still have the ego that I am the one exercising the choice, I am doing this action, then what does that lead to?
Okay. So now, as we saw already, that ego, if you remember, that ego in Sanskrit, right? It only means ahankara. Ahankara only means a function of mind. We saw that the mind has 4 different aspects. See, we attribute to ego, when we speak in English, to something bad. In Sanskrit, when you use ahankara, there is no value added. It is just a function of mind. Okay? So therefore, we saw 4 functions of mind. What are the functions of mind? Manas, buddhi, chittam and ahankara. So this I sense which gets connected to your emotions, your buddhi, your chittam seems like this I which is not really your nature. Okay? This is what we call ahankara. Ahankara is in English we call it ego. That ego either can be highly selfish or what? It can be an enlightened ego. What we are trying to do is this ego which is fraught with all these different problems, we are trying to make it what? Responsible, wise, okay? Engaging in the world with a sense of responsibility so that this bigger reality can be understood. Okay? So ahankara, the ego itself is a function according to the traditional teaching. Okay? It can be highly small and self-centered, or it can be what? Highly enlightened. So the whole process of karma yoga is what? To make it from small to responsible.
But wouldn't that happen with the goal shift anyway?
Sorry?
Meaning if your goal shifts from
Yeah, exactly.
artha kama to
Yes.
moksha, then
Yes.
that's a natural progression of that ahankara.
There is a natural progression of that ahankara which is true with me, but that ahankara now has recognized moksha as the end, is looking into the nature of big realities, but at the same time fraught with all these burdens that I was talking about.
But with
Okay?
awareness.
So now the whole karma yoga is the process through which you release exactly, right? Release all these burdens so that this ahankara can understand this reality accurately. You see that? So that means ego, we are not trying to eliminate ego here. Why? Because ego, according to us, is a function of mind, the I sense. What you are trying to do is what? Embellish it, nurture it, make it more responsible, but free it from all the smallness that it has. That is what we are trying to do. Right? So this is the whole attempt through karma yoga. This is the very purpose of karma yoga. Because now your I sense on one hand has heard this big reality, and on the other hand what is carrying all these burdens. So you have to match. That matching is what we are doing through Karma Yoga. Is it clear?
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm finding it difficult drawing the line between non-action
Yes.
and procrastination. So sometimes we don't want to take an action, we just say, I think wait for more data. So can you give me some
Yeah, see.
clarity?
One thing is, there is, even a non-action can be very deliberate. Okay? In that case, it is something which is very wise thing to do. For example, one of the things that people say, which is all the psychologists do, right? Let's say you're angry with somebody. He says count till 10 before you respond. What is this counting till 10? There is some magic in counting till 10? No. You give yourself some time. Generally what happens, there is this stimuli and then there is a impulse. The minute you say, okay, now I'm going to respond now, when I count 10, you automatically calm down. Okay? So that means now you have not responded to that given situation. It is something which is a very wise thing to do. Okay? So a non-action, when it is done deliberately to avoid a given exactly is something which is a very wise thing to do. So you should know when to respond, how to respond, the manner in which to respond. All that is what goes into your decision. If it is deliberate, then that is something which is very healthy. But if you say that now this is too difficult, I don't want to deal with it, okay, and then somehow expect that things will get solved by not dealing with it, then that is what we call procrastination.
Supposing you have a project also, and you have got certain data, and you cannot act on that data. You say, okay, let me get more data before I clarify whether I am going to do this path or not go. I mean, you have to then not act till that further data comes in, but you have taken a decision to get that further data.
But sometimes the mind plays tricks. We don't want to take the action, so you just wait for more data and more, and that becomes procrastination because you're afraid to take that decision. How do you?
Yeah. So that means only you, exactly, the mind plays tricks. This is a fact. It makes you believe in things which are not true. The minute you become aware of that, what happens? Mind has a tendency, but if you become aware, ask yourself, am I trying to run away, or am I really not waiting for another data? And how much am I really trying? Converse with your mind. Talk to yourself.
But it's also wishful thinking that the earth will
Open.
will do things to let your problem go away, and
And only
This is
yours.
so true.
No, and only yours.
Just in
Maybe
universe.
everyone else is in the dustbin.
Yeah. And another thing which I feel is something which is very extremely common is like in interpersonal relationships, right? People either are like aggressive or they just blow up and do whatever and say things which are mean or get angry and victimize people, or they are what we call passive aggressive. They totally withdraw, they don't say anything. Okay? And by not saying anything, they think that things will disappear. They automatically will adjust. Okay? Both of these, and this is what we call, in some ways you can call it procrastination, because it's like you can make certain actions but you don't do anything, and hoping that things will fix. Over a period of time, when you don't fix the problem, what happens? They become huge. Okay? And then they become overwhelming. And then you say, oh my God, now this whole pattern has set, now how do I get out of it? Because I am not happy with this. Okay? This is a very common problem, right? We are not asking, this is where we say karmani eva adhikara hate. You can do, but use your discretion as to what you do, how you do, at what time you do. Okay? You have to use your free will, small things. Either we just get totally angry, or We don't say anything. This whole large spectrum that we have in our hand, which is what Tushar is talking about, we have to learn how to use it and use our creativity. Then life will become amazingly beautiful. Because you are constantly engaging in finding solutions.
Again, having full clarity of mind.
Sorry?
Again, it comes back to just being so clear all the time in your mind.
Yeah,
that you are able to see it in that way and analyze it and be creative in your dealing.
Neeta, what is the step to become totally clear? You take first step. And then you take another step. And then you take another step. Otherwise, it will never happen. So changing our way of doing things and understanding what I have. We do so many actions with no clarity. And because we have no clarity, what karma becomes bandhana. When you do now actions with awareness, what? It will help you to free. Yeah, exactly.
So what is the clarity required so that you don't have regret?
So this is what I'm saying, that first understand, this is what I'm saying, what you have a choice over, these are the very fundamental things, okay, and what you don't have choice over. That is the first thing. Otherwise, how will you begin to use karma to gain, unload all these burdens that you are carrying? First, know what you have a choice over and what you don't have choice over. And once having known that, what? Don't take yourself to be the author of results of the actions, because if you do take yourself to be the author of result of action, what happens? These reactions are inevitable. And if you take to non-action, what happens? You are just passive. So, use your free will. Now, the next question is what you are asking now, how do I use my free will effectively? That is the next set of analysis. First, we have seen I have a free will, right? With reference to my action. This is a fact. And use it. That is the message that is given. Now, the second question is how do I use it effectively? Which then comes in the next few verses that we will see. Okay? So, it's already 10:15. We will see how to use my free will effectively. It is a gift and how to use it. What are the guidelines?